Does your pump underperform? Does it not hold a vacuum? Does your pump need constant pumping?
That's right. Taylor Wright Show, everyone. Taylor Wright Show. Here we go.
Welcome to Taylor Wright Channel. Today we're going to explore how to diagnose these various issues that you're having with your pump. A pump should be able to maintain its vacuum if it's set up and working properly. Here we have a pump that has been set up and has a vacuum on it for the last 3 or 4 hours. So this pump basically is properly connected with a vacuum gauge on it. But in order to be able to go ahead and test a pump, we have devised a test cap. This pump here, as it shows in the gauge, is 24.5 inches of mercury. It's been that way now for the past 3 or 4 days at 24.5 inches of mercury. The pump and its integrity are all there. It will hold and maintains a vacuum, and there are no leaks at all. When the vacuum holds steady for days, it's superb. We've devised a special cap. This cap right here is a silicone cap, and it allows you to go ahead and test the integrity of any pump by capping it off at the hose barb here and then being able to check and see that it maintains its vacuum over a period of time. But for those who don't have a silicone test cap, they'll typically go ahead and use a finger. By putting a finger on here, what one finds is it needs extreme amounts of pressure on here. Just slightly pressing, you can see the gauge is already starting to drop. Why? Because the vacuum manages to go ahead and pull itself through the little grooves in your fingerprints. So in this, you press the hose barb extremely hard, extremely tightly. You will not have a good seal, and you will not be actually testing, and you'll think that your pump is defective, where your grooves in your finger are the cause of the issue, not the pump. That's why having a test cap is extremely important to then check your total integrity of your gauge, your threads on the gauge, and the hose barb connection, and the diaphragm. The diaphragm is the heart of your pump, and if it is not in its original shape due to heat extremes or due to extremes of cold, a diaphragm can become disinformed or dislocated and reshaped in such a way that it no longer will function as a good diaphragm and a good way to create a vacuum, as it allows the vacuum to leak, and because of the difference in shape that it's acquired over time. We use a proprietary material in our diaphragms that allows us to be able to use the diaphragm in extreme cold or extreme heat, and it returns to its original shape and holds that shape, and it maintains it in such a way that it performs on an ongoing basis to give a very reliable vacuum. In addition to that, you then have issues that when you're pumping, you need to go ahead, and as we see here, this cylinder is still attached and still has a vacuum on it. This has been vacuumed and set up for about 24 hours. The quick release valve on the top here has a couple of issues in it. Number one issue is the fact that that quick release valve goes ahead and has an O-ring. This very, very small blue O-ring, as we see here by my finger, can easily get damaged. So typically what happens is somebody goes ahead and has the vacuum gauge in a locked position, as we show here. This is a locked position where the pin is down. So if you go ahead and try to force then this male adapter fitting in here and push this in, and you push it in hard enough, you'll hear a click. And that click indicates that it is seated properly. You go ahead and press the tab button, and it releases the quick release valve, and you maintain your vacuum. That's the beauty of this. So we will go ahead here and we will attach the quick release fitting into this quick release hose barb. And in here there's a click when it's seated properly in there, and we still have a vacuum. We can go ahead and remove the pump and its quick release connector, so we have it not attached, so it's much more freedom and better and easier to use without all this entanglement. So by going ahead and pressing the quick release valve here, we can then remove the quick release hose on here. If we notice here that this is in an up position, if the valve is in here is in a down position, we go ahead then and have the valve in a closed position. Oftentimes people go ahead and don't realize that there's an open and a closed position to this quick release valve. What this allows us to do, if we have the valve set in the open position with the pin is down, we then go ahead and insert it and press down, and we'll hear a clicking noise. With that clicking noise, the quick release valve is now activated and is in place and locked so that it does not easily come out. So we'll now go ahead and create a vacuum, and with this vacuum we will then go ahead and have the cylinder attached to the pad, and as you can see, it's attached. In order to be able to go ahead and have more freedom, the quick release valve is awesome, as it allows you to basically disconnect the pump and its hose by pressing the valve here, removing the fitting, and bingo, you now have a cylinder or other device that's totally free from the pump and its hose, so it gives you a lot more freedom of usage and not having all these entanglements attached to everything. But what often goes and happens is in this quick release fitting, there's a small O-ring, and this O-ring goes ahead and gets very easily damaged because of the locking mechanism on here. So if this device is put in such a way that it's in the locked position, and when it's in the locked position and you go ahead and insert the quick release fitting, it damages the O-ring. And over a period of a few uses, going ahead and inserting here when it's in a closed position and forcing it in, what you end up then having is a damaged O-ring. As the O-ring becomes more damaged, then it becomes very difficult to maintain a vacuum, because you go ahead and as you pump, the vacuum is being released because of the damaged O-ring, and you cannot hold a constant and steady vacuum. To release, we have lost our vacuum here because of the O-ring being damaged and forced in. So that fastens the quick release valve into the cylinder, and we go ahead now and pump. We now have a vacuum that we've created here, and with that vacuum, the cylinder is fastened in place. We can maintain that vacuum by and still release the pump and release the hose by just pushing the quick release valve here, and bingo, the pump is still attached and it still has a vacuum, which is a very nifty and neat feature which you can utilize to give you more freedom and not have the hose and the pump attached at all times. If this is working correctly, it'll maintain a vacuum and will not need to be constantly pumped to maintain that vacuum, but a vacuum will stay in a steady state that it's pumped to and maintain that valve, that setting or vacuum. Because at the base here, there's a flange. That flange has to seal against the body. If it's not making a good seal, your vacuum will be lost and not be maintained, and you'll need to constantly pump in order to maintain the vacuum. If the fitting up here is not tightened so that the O-ring on it seats on the cylinder, there will be a leak of the vacuum. Again, you'll have to go ahead and pump to maintain the vacuum. But if all the parts are integrated and properly set up, there will be no leak, and you will not have to constantly pump, which is annoying. So making sure that your quick release valve is properly seated on the O-ring and making a good firm and tight contact so there's no loss of vacuum there. And also the flange is properly connected to the body in such a way that it's making a very good seal. That's usually the area that is most often the culprit in the loss of a vacuum, is the flange is not making a good seal with the bottom due to body hair or other issues going on that cause it not to seat completely or 100%. It is important when pumping to make sure that you have integrity in your pump. As we discussed earlier, here's a pump that's been with a test cap on and maintained a vacuum here for many, many, many hours. This pump goes ahead and is at 22.5 inches of mercury. So the pumps will maintain a vacuum for a long period of time and show their integrity because of the fact that they are totally integrated with proper caps on them so they don't leak here through your finger. They have a proper Teflon tape on the threads for the gauge, and the quick release valve has not been damaged because it has more integrity with the enhanced versions which we put together of quick release valves here, of this one here with a much more substantial quick release valve which goes ahead and holds up and maintains its integrity even during shipping and during use. So this gives you some ideas of how to look and evaluate your pumping to make sure that the pump itself has integrity with the test cap, then the cylinder has integrity or the device that's on there, and any quick release valves are properly seated and the O-rings are not damaged. If the O-rings are damaged, it'll be very difficult to get a vacuum created and to maintain that vacuum when you're pumping. Flanges are very important, and there's extras on there of seals and other things that can help and facilitate you having a good firm seal on the flange. This pump, this here is still attached, still has a vacuum in place, as this one, as you see, has no seal whatsoever and is not attached to the base. Good pumping, and have a great day.